Welcome to the Ann Arbor Human Rights Commission. We'll start with roll call. Denise,
Okay.
please.
This meeting will be broadcast live on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at a2gov.org. Watch CTN. Public commentary can be made in person or by calling 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099. Enter meeting ID 996-9403-7874.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Cass,
Present.
Commissioner Meadows, Vice Chair Garber,
Present.
Councilmember Song,
Here.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin,
Here.
Commissioner Pesmiser, Commissioner Bond,
Present.
Chair Stanbaugh,
Present.
Commissioner Cowan,
Hello, here.
Commissioner Winkler,
Here.
Commissioner Silva. Absent, okay. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Denise. Now time for public comment. It's a time where people from the community can come and speak on any topic. You have 3 minutes each. I know that there are people out there. Are there also
Yes.
people on the phone? Do you want to take the phone calls first?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, we're going to take phone calls first, and then we'll ask you to come up.
Number 1517, please speak. Please unmute. Caller?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello. Hello, my name is Tripti, respected council member. I would like to request members of the Human Rights Commission to endorse the Aisha's proposal to include the caste as a protected caste in the City of Non-Discrimination Audience. I am Tripti and I work in IT, and I did face the discrimination on multiple occasions. My present experience at my workplace, when my coworker called me out after knowing that which caste I belong to, by saying in front of a group of crow workers, because of people like me taking the reservation and getting the education, since in India the caste of the people is only legally recognized in India for the purpose of reservations. So she pointed out me in front of all the co-workers, saying her sister did not get admission in the school. And I was very shocked and humiliated in front of a group of colleagues, even though I did not take advantage of the reservation. And I was called out and humiliated in front of all. So after this incident, I did not disclose. I never disclosed my caste anymore. So, and I don't want same to be happen to my children. So I urge the council member to endorse the Aisha's proposal to include caste as a protected class in the City of Non-Discrimination Audience. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Caller 662, please unmute.
Hi, my name is Maya, and I'm calling in to show my support for the agenda item to include caste as a protected category in Ann Arbor's non-discrimination ordinance. Caste has been a huge problem, a significant issue in United States, and there are numerous cases involving discrimination based upon caste, which have demonstrated the extent of the problem and the urgent need for a solution. I myself have faced caste-based discrimination when one of my managers, who used to really like my work earlier, after he came to know what my caste is, grew increasingly frustrated and started neglecting my suggestions in the meetings. And when my colleagues noticed this, they understood that some sort of problem is happening, and they started to back me up in the meetings. But after a few months, he told me, when I volunteered for a project, he told me not to touch that project because I was ill-fated. And this was a direct attack on me based upon caste, because the caste that I come from is supposed to be called untouchable caste, meaning we are so ill-fated, we are tagged and stereotyped in such a way that we are called so ill-fated that we are not supposed to touch anyone. So I never really thought that caste would manifest to me in such a way, being in United States, and that too with so much of education. I have a master's degree in computer science. So even after getting that sort of education and being as competent as anyone else can be, I was facing caste-based discrimination. And caste-based discrimination, and it's not just my story, or it's not just Trupti's story.
You have 1 minute left.
Of many. Okay. Equality Lab survey shows that 25% of caste-oppressed people face physical assault, and 1 in 3 students who are from oppressed caste are discriminated against during their education, and 60% of underprivileged report experience in derogatory jokes and comments. So this is a real problem, and it completely and it exists in every single city. Seattle has taken the precedence to become one of the first cities to add caste-based discrimination as caste as a protected category. I would also request you to do the same. Thank you so much for listening to our stories.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have somebody from the floor here to speak? We'll try to interchange with floor and phone. There are an awful lot of people who want to speak. And we will only be able to give you about half hour altogether.
Okay.
So we're trying.
My name is Ganga Sivapandian. I come from Telangana. My son studies here. So first of all, thank you for organizing this. And I support this caste ordinance to be included. If I look at the discrimination category, there are 17. For example, let me tell you one example. There's an Indian, they are from the same race, same gender, same everything. Why do they fight? Because in the Bhagavad Gita, it is very clearly says, I created 4 categories of caste, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So it's kind of a, categories, right? So when the religion tells, that's why these so-called Hindus are against this. The Sikhs, they got casteism. They just keep quiet because they want to reform. Christians, yes, they do have, because it's rooted from Hinduism, right? People who migrated from here to here, they don't care. So why does only Hindus care? Because caste is embedded in Hinduism. No Hindu can be without a caste. So with this, they imported this into US. I'm here for the last 25 years. I can tell tons of examples. Even last week, I resigned my job because of this. It's a fact. I got a Brahmin manager. I resigned last week. I'm going for another. How many people can do that? So please, thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mahesh Vasnik, and I am a resident of Michigan from last 20 years, and I'm working in the automotive industry in supply chain. I would like to request the Human Rights Commissioner and all the council member to endorse the AISA's proposal to add caste in a protected class in our city's ordinance. And also please keep caste as a standalone category. I belong to the oppressed community, and still now there are 250,000 million people are suffering from the caste discrimination. I am part of it. I can speak half an hour just to tell my experience here, but we don't have much time. And again, I do not want to impose this caste, which I suffer. I don't want my kids to suffer and their generations to suffer. Yesterday, was the birth anniversary of our social reformer called Mahatma Phule. He fought in the 18th century to abolish the caste system. This week, on the April 14th, there is a birth anniversary of Dr. Ambedkar, and he fought caste system in 20th century, and we are still fighting that caste system. So how long we can fight this caste system? So again, I request all the council member and the commissioner, please vote yes on the ordinance and just annihilate this caste system. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll take two people on the phone, and we're trying to be as fair as possible.
Number 652, please unmute. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, this is Tanaji Takwal. I work as an IT program manager and I'm in US for last 20 years. Sometimes I face this caste discrimination while getting the job interviews. There are certain people, there are certain companies which have the recruiting people from India, and those are mostly these upper caste people who actually take these interviews. And they actually, when they come to know my last name, they come to know I'm a lower class person. So even though I have the qualification, I've done masters in electronics, and I am in the IT industry for last 20 years working in US. But in spite of that, my qualification and education and experience in the various fields, these people actually reject me. I don't know. Then I come to know the interviewer person is from the upper caste, and because of him, I got rejected. So I hereby actually support that caste to be included in this discrimination, as a discrimination in this category. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 847, please unmute. Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Prashant Nema, and I am calling to show my support for the agenda item to include caste as a protected class in Ann Arbor's non-discrimination ordinance. I come from the dominant caste community, and I have been embedded in the Indian American community for the last 22 years. I can confirm that there are many people in the community who have prejudiced views against people from the marginalized communities of India and South Asia. So we do need these protections in place so that we can have workplaces which are safe for everybody. So please, do justice here, which has been denied for a very long time. Because the company HRs and others do not, or they claim to not understand how to enforce these protections. So, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Somebody from up here? Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Ann Arbor's Human Rights Commission members and City Council members. My name is Sanjay, and I'm standing here to support the proposal to add caste as a protected class in the city's non-discrimination ordinance. The ordinance will protect me and my family members as a descendant of depressed classes of South Asian origin. Caste discrimination is rampant in United States, in housing, at workplace, and in schools. Caste discrimination makes it difficult to assimilate, to integrate, to thrive and pursue American dream. It leads to exclusion, exploitation, bullying, denial of growth opportunities, and wage theft. Not having remedy makes people to suffer silently. Adding caste as a separate category will extend equality to the last person in the line. So I urge Human Rights Commission members to support and extend equality to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who's here would like to speak?
Want to go online?
Not going on. Yes.
Number 770, please speak. Please unmute. Hello? Number 955, please unmute. Hello?
Good evening. Good
Good
evening,
evening.
council members. Thanks for listening to us and organizing this this public hearing. My name is Suresh, and I am calling to urge you to pass this resolution to add caste as a protected category in the city of Ann Arbor. There are South Asian community members who have suffered a lot. They are still suffering in these communities where we are caste oppressed. We have faced discrimination. I personally have been discriminated against by the oppressor caste because of my so-called lower caste status, which resulted in me being denied employment opportunities. I was discriminated in housing, and I have also seen, I have been a personal witness to South Asian students coming from South Asia not allowing roommates from oppressed caste communities to live with them when they find out what the caste is. Imagine these people are bringing that mindset to the American campuses. Before agreeing to be roommates with someone, they are asking some of these South Asians, hey, what is your caste? If their caste is high enough in the ladder, only then they will get to live with them. Please listen to the oppressed people. Please listen to the folks who are here. And I urge you to pass this resolution and add caste as a protected category in the city of Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 989, please unmute.
Hello,
Hello?
can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Ubaid, and good evening to Honorable Human Rights Commission and Council members. I'm calling in to show my support for the agenda item to include caste as a protected category, class in Ann Arbor's non-discriminatory ordinance. And myself, I have been a caste oppressed Christian. I have faced caste discrimination here in the United States. It's been like 7 years I'm here. And in the churches, it exists in the color diversity, again, like people from, the problem is like we perceive that people of same color are our brothers and sisters, but that's not. We have our own prejudices and practices. And caste slurs has been used right here in public places. Many times I have seen that, I have heard that. And caste is not just ancestry, but caste is something which is deeply rooted in the cultural format, and wherever Indians go, they bring their caste practices with them. And so I myself, from a lower caste background, I have seen discrimination, I have faced discrimination, I have been ignored. My views were being ignored because they found out my caste. And so that's why I urge the Ann Arbor members of the council and Human Rights Commission to please include caste as a protected class in Ann Arbor's non-discriminatory ordinance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? Anybody, one person?
Hello, my name is Santosh Shinde. I'm a resident here
Please
since
talk
9
a
years.
little louder.
I'm a resident since 9 years in Ann Arbor. So I would like to request the Human Rights Commission to endorse Alicia's proposal to include caste a separate category in a city non-discrimination ordinance, keeping caste as a standalone category. It will be a great for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that it? No one else wants to speak? Then public comments are closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's just look at the agenda and approve that, and we will have our meeting with the city administrator. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move.
Second.
Any additions or subtractions, changes?
Perhaps we can move the CAS discussion up after the city administrator so that those who are here can.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I have one other I'm going to add one more bullet point to internal business, if no one objects, about the Renters Association, Renters Commission. Any other discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll carry on. Next on our agenda is our meeting finally with the city administrator, Milton Mahoney. And we're very happy to have him here. Is he really here?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Mr. Mahoney?
Ah, there he is. Now, he's not on the screen.
There he is.
He's on your screen, but he's not
he
up
should be.
there. I don't know.
Good evening.
Ah, there we
Okay,
go.
yes.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So glad to have you here. We had hoped to meet with you sooner, but every time we scheduled a visit, something went wrong or went right, like in January when you had, and you chose Vice President Kamala Harris instead of coming here. We understand. But we appreciate you joining with us now.
Thank you.
After 36 years of experience in places like Lexington, Kentucky, and Cincinnati, Ohio, and Phoenix, Arizona, you probably thought you'd seen it all. What do you think so far? It's been about a year and a half. I'll bet there's some things new you didn't expect.
It has been a year and a half. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. We clearly have some challenges in our community, but I'm honored to be here to work with the community, with the staff, with the city council, with all of the stakeholders to try to move Ann Arbor forward. There is some opportunities here for us to look at, and clearly we have the same kind of issues here that other communities across the country are dealing with. Housing challenges, being able to address the needs of those who are unhoused, seeking fairness and justice for everyone who's a part of the community. And while we can't do anything about it necessarily, seeing what is taking place regarding gun violence across the country. My home is Louisville, Kentucky, and I knew one of the people that was killed recently as a result of the shooting. And it's just something that's hard to fathom that we have in society, but it's there. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. I have been in this business almost 40 years. I've worked, this is my 5th city. I'm a husband, I'm a father, grandfather, and I was honored to get the opportunity to come here.
I'll bet people here have questions that they'd like to ask you.
Okay.
Any good questions?
Hi, I'm Diana Cass, one of the commissioners. I've been a commissioner for about 4 years. So we've seen So during my time, I've seen a couple of city administrators come through. I must say that you do not look like you could be a grandfather, and I don't say that to butter you up. So there are a number of things that are going on within the city in regards to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Can you share what your thoughts are on equity and diversity and inclusion and how it relates to the city?
Yes, when I came in October of 21, the city, under the direction of the city council, had made a commitment to begin to build an infrastructure focusing on DEI within the government. We were, at the time, trying to hire a manager for DEI. Upon coming here and reviewing what we were doing, I made a decision that the position that we were trying to fill was not at the right level. So we elevated it to be a director. That person needed to report directly to me, not anyone else. We were able to bring on a person to work both internally and externally with our community. Internally, we have made some strides, but we have a ways to go as it relates to really putting forth a diverse workforce. We have some equity issues that we have been trying to address. We're also developing some training curriculum for the staff in order for us to be not only sensitive, but at the operational level, we need to have DEI fully incorporated up and down the organization into our policies, into our practices, and really create a space for us to mature. We also need to build relationships and partnerships with other stakeholders and institutions in the community of Ann Arbor that embrace the value that DEI brings. And one of the things we've been saying to our employees who maybe are not as aware of the importance of DEI, DEI doesn't take anything from anyone. What it does is brings more to the table and recognizes the value that every individual that comes to us has, and we need to be more intentional about ensuring that we have equity, that we have diversity, and that we have inclusion. The last thing I'll say, sorry for the long answer, the last thing I'll say is that if you were to ask me about the three, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to me, diversity is the easiest. But to deal with equity and to deal with inclusion, and inclusion for us means irrespective of title, irrespective of level within the organization. When we're doing things, when we're formulating policies, when we're formulating practices, when we are addressing issues related to pay, are we really being inclusive in how we do that? So in the budget that is coming up, I'll be presenting on Monday night. I will be making some comments about some additions that we need to add in order to build our infrastructure. And it's, not going to get us where we need to go overnight, but I am pleased with the direction that we're taking.
Thank you. Other questions?
I actually have a follow-up question. Under the idea that we need to know where we are in order to know exactly what it'll take to get us where we'd like to be, do you have thoughts or plans for a global assessment of the DEI status of the city? you
person that we
mentioned a
have
few.
hired, Laura Orta, she has, we have engaged along the lines of creating space to review what we're currently doing, which she is in the process of doing now. We're doing that. We don't really use the word department here. We say service area, but it means essentially the same thing. But we're going area by area. We're also, we have created a number of opportunities for individuals that work here to engage and share their experience and their reality working in the particular areas of the organization. We have procured a software that will allow us to bring training in for our workforce. We also have been doing more engagements with labor organizations. So we are meticulously trying to go through the entire organization on the staff side to assess exactly where we are in the areas that I mentioned. And so it's written policy, it's the operational directives that guide us day to day. It's also assessing our situation with regards to compensation, and we'll be addressing some of that on Monday night as well. We have some, I'll just call them institutional issues here that need to be addressed. And we're going to have to spend some money to do it. But I do support doing that in order to make the organization get better.
Okay, so your thoughts are to have the assessments done internally, primarily?
In terms of getting started, yes.
Okay.
Keep in mind that Laura has only been here a matter of months. And part of what the next budget will bring is some additional staff for the area that she oversees, because this is clearly not a one-person, it can't be a one-person operation if we're going to have any level of success. So if the budget gets approved, I can't get in front of the council. If they approve what we've requested, then we'll make some additions there. We'll also need to provide her some funding to procure. If we were going to use consultative help, she has to have a budget to do that. Right now, she doesn't have that because she just started. So I'm open to whatever, there'll be a recommendation made to me between Laura and Deborah Buxton, who was our HR leader, on a path forward. And so what I don't yet have is cost, methodology, and the recommended approach, but that's where we're headed.
Mr. Dohoney, thank you very much for being here. I'm Commissioner Sova. I'm curious, in your mind, in terms of a framework moving forward for the Human Rights Commission in collaboration with your office and your efforts, how you imagine that moving forward in terms of an ideal partnership.
Well, I'll give you an example of one of the first assignments that I gave Laura upon starting was to continue direct collaboration with Kodai, who I had engaged with before she started. So I made a commitment to them that I would support the creation of an ADA coordinator for the city. It's a position that we have not had. That position would report to her. And I asked her to collaborate with them on the development of what the position should look like. Well, by the same token, if there are policies or practices that your commission, that we either are undertaking or looking at and would benefit from the value of the advice and counsel that you could give us, I would want her to work directly with the commission on those things. I understand what your role is, and I understand what ours is, but for us to be the best organization we can be, for us to be the best community that we can be, we have to move forward in a collaborative fashion. We, in my opinion, we cannot afford to simply stay in the staff lane and not reach out for the value of experience and information and education that others can bring us. And Laura certainly sees that. She believes that. And so we both would be very open to working collaboratively with you on areas of common interest.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hi, I'm Linda Winkler. One area of common interest is the hopefully near possible, soon to be reality of unarmed response in the city. So I just wonder if you could sort of catch us up on where we are on that and what you see the next steps might be.
We made a commitment a year ago to allocate $3.5 million from the ARPA funding to provide sort of a foundation to get started. We've undertaken a community engagement process to gain input from people about what they saw as proper considerations for the unarmed response model. I will share with you that the community has differing views on what unarmed response could be or should be. I will be addressing unarmed response in my comments to council on Monday from a budgetary standpoint, so I won't go into those here. But the next sort of organizational step, the city will need to put forward an RFP to look for a vendor who would actually implement the unarmed response model. We do not see it as something that could or should be carried out internally. So the way that it's been talked about is the policymakers would receive a recommendation from the staff based on the RFP process regarding options for implementing the model. I think you will be pleased with what you hear me say on Monday in terms of providing funding, because while the $3.5 million is nice, that money will not last forever. So we do have in our proposal how to continue to build that so that we can solidify it. And then once we, and really the council, accepts a recommendation coming out of the RFP process, we would then need to begin the process of engaging with whoever is chosen to develop and implement the program. As a person who has been on sort of both sides of the government over the extent of my career, I can say to you in all sincerity, we will have some growing pains that we have to work through as a community and determine what's appropriate and what isn't. You know, as an example, when we went through the public engagement process, some people believe that unarmed response should be used when it comes to domestic violence calls. Other people have the total opposite view of that. And so we're going to have to settle on what is the right approach in Ann Arbor. Where are we willing to go with it and figure out what's appropriate for unarmed response and what isn't. Based on what I've heard in a year and a half, since we don't have a program already up and running, realistically, I know that it cannot possibly be everything that people have mentioned to me that they want to see unarmed response do. So we'll have to figure that out, but it will make us a stronger community once we get it off the ground. It will provide an alternative to members of our community who do not want to call the police department. And one of the things that I think it's not premature to say that we should expect is we have to have a transparent program where we can see, well, how many runs did they make and what kind of calls did they go on and how were they able to bring resolution to the matters where they intervened. That should be sort of low-hanging fruit for us to look at the good that the program can do, and whatever the mistakes are, work through them and make it better and keep moving.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your work on that. I think we all do.
Yes. Yes, that's something I think we're all interested in, and I hope that Safe House and ICPOC and the Human Rights Commission can be involved in some of that thinking through discussions. We're very interested.
Right.
Any other questions before we let our city administrator, who's probably anxious to go? Well, thank you very, very much for, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam Meadows, Commissioner, and mine is more of a general question, and that is, of the programs or ideas that you may have successfully implemented in previous employment, what would you recommend any one or several of those being implemented here in Ann Arbor to enhance our city? We already enjoy the distinction of being one of the best places to live, enjoying a number of other things, but we're not perfect. And while we may be trending in that, we, as you've indicated, have work to do. So I'm more interested in learning what you have successfully implemented in other employment that you would ideally recommend we could implement here.
Well, that's an interesting question. One of the adjustments that I've needed to make coming here is to adjust to the scale of Ann Arbor. By far, this is the smallest community I've ever worked in. Most recently, before coming to Ann Arbor, I worked for the city of Phoenix for over 7 years, and by contrast, the city of Phoenix is the largest council manager form of government in the United States. So I went from 15,000 employees to 800 employees. And people that have worked with me, people that have known me over the years, have always known me to be a straight shooter. And so I'm going to give you a very straight answer, which may or may not settle with some of the community, but at least they will respect me for it. When I came here, one of the first things that I noticed in listening to people, because I'm very big on going around the community and listening to where people are, is our community has a split view about I've had a long history of successes in terms of helping to spur growth and development. And I'm not talking about 10 million skyscrapers or things like that. But our community needs more density. Our community needs housing, not just affordable housing or workforce housing. We need housing at all levels. We should not view growth and density as a bad thing, but as an opportunity. And if you look at where Cincinnati was when I went there in 2006 and where it was in 2013, there was light years of difference. I actually am the architect of the Office of Accountability and Transparency that Phoenix has now put in place. That is the Phoenix version of what ICPOC is. In Lexington, Kentucky, I was instrumental in developing and helping the community to embrace the notion of a transit tax to ensure that there was a public transit bus system in Lexington. When I served as the deputy mayor of Louisville, I was directly involved in the merger of city and county government in Jefferson County, Kentucky. And you know, I could tick through a lot of different kinds of things that I've been involved in, including hiring the first outside and first African-American police chief in the history of Cincinnati, Ohio, being directly involved in hiring the first woman fire chief in the history of Phoenix, Arizona, appointing the first African-American female assistant fire chief in Louisville, Kentucky. And the reason I mention both of those things, my efforts in cities have involved both people, projects, and issues. And the reason I was invited to come to Ann Arbor is because of my background. I have a history of working on difficult things and being able to help a community achieve results. So in our city, we have opportunities for growth. We have opportunities for our downtown to get better. And by better, I mean it needs to get cleaner. It needs to have a higher perception of safety. We have to get a better handle on taking care of our road infrastructure. And while it's not something that I can fix on my own, as educated as our community is, there are still instances where we struggle with tolerance here. And I'm just being straight when I say that. We can and should and need to get better in some of those areas. And we've got to get better at policing here. We don't have a police department like Minneapolis or other places. We don't have the evidence of that here, but there are still things like transparency where we can improve. I have helped departments to do that. I have negotiated a consent decree with the Department of Justice and done an MOU between the police department, the Black Liberation Front, and the city of Cincinnati in federal court. All of the kind of things that I have done, coupled with the integrity that I stand on and valuing what my name is, which is at the end of the day, all I have. My parents gave me my name and my foundation, and I do not compromise it for anyone. So I think whenever I'm done here, the city will be a better place because of the efforts of the staff and me working in the manner that I do in providing the kind of leadership that I have the ability to provide and the collaborative spirit that I bring to the table. And so that's a long answer to your question. But when you get to the stage in life that I'm at, I'm just very comfortable being candid with people when they ask me serious questions.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
Very, very helpful. Anything else? Thank you so much. We really appreciate your visit.
Thank you, and I'm willing to come back if you all invite me, and I'll show up, maybe even in the chambers where you are. Maybe that'd be better next time.
Thank you. We look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, our next agenda item, I don't know if you understood, but we have changed the agendas to have the question of caste.
Leslie.
Yes. The question of caste be our next thing, the next thing on our agenda. And what has happened is we've got a proposal to put caste as one of the protected classes in the non-discrimination ordinance.
Could I just
Yes, please.
say a few comments? So firstly, I want to thank all the members of the AMBITCAR, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Association of North America for coming, and thanks for sharing how caste has impacted you. So it's AANA, A-A-N-A, approached me about a month or so ago about including caste as a protected class in our non-discrimination ordinance. And I began to explore whether it could fit under ancestry or race, which after doing more research, I didn't believe that it fit there. And after also the members sharing more with me about why it doesn't fit there. For those of you who don't know, caste is a complex type of discrimination that's based on intersecting identities, including political, economic, and social identities. It includes the color of your skin. It's intergenerational, and it's based on where you're born, who you marry, and many other factors. It's one of the oldest forms of social stratification. This is something that the British loved to really, they helped crystallize it, divide and conquer. They were great at really getting our country to fight each other. I also want to mention that this is something that is prevalent across South Asian countries, and it's crossed different religions. It's not just Hinduism, it's prevalent in Islam, in Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, Christianity. For example, if a Dalit were to convert from Hinduism to Islam, most likely they would still experience discrimination and oppression because of their caste. But the most important thing is that you guys help to highlight that this discrimination is happening here, right, among our communities here. And that is so important for us to take a stance on. Especially now heading into APIA Heritage Month, it's important that we as a community call out how we discriminate against each other, perpetuate things like anti-Blackness. I also want to mention that Seattle has recently changed their non-discrimination ordinance, and the state of California has also proposed a bill. So these are they're discrimination cases that are being litigated. I will be bringing in the only other Asian American council member, my colleague Lid Song, into this as well. She'll be helping with this effort. And yeah, we are going to work with all of you and make this happen. So I want to thank you again for being here. And Lynn, do you want to?
Sure. So just briefly jumping in, I was taking a look at what Seattle had put into place, and I found this quote that I think puts maybe a bit of context into what we do here at the Human Rights Commission and what we'd like to see happen in the city, from an organizer who said that if you marched in the Black Lives Matter movement, or you desire to live in a society free of racism, racial discrimination, sexism, or misogyny, then you should be paying attention, because while caste oppression or discrimination does not affect all Americans, the way it manifests itself is no different than other types of oppression under capitalism. And that's an organizer named Sawant, and reflecting on the work in Seattle. And that ordinance update was voted in 6-1. So it sounds like it was something that the city council there really was supportive of, and something that the community was demanding. So it's I think worthy of our time to put a little bit of research and time into talking to community members that we know. And hopefully we can have those reflections too as we look at this language. And hopefully we can anticipate more community members come forward too to speak. Because I think the objective really is to not only just recognize this, but offer a way of assistance, right, through complaints, and that we have a process here that should apply to all protected classes that we see, try to help.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any questions, or I can go on?
I do.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a couple of questions. So I'm not against this at all, actually. I've heard of this before, and so I think this is something that it seems very simple to do. We just add it. My first question would be, do we have any idea how many people this affects or would affect within the city of Ann Arbor? And I suppose that's kind of hard because so many people come into the city to work.
Yeah.
Right? And it would be protections for people like me who don't necessarily own a home or something like within the city limits, but actually come into the city to work. The second question is, as I was listening to public comment, as a person, for example, if I'm hiring somebody, how would I know what caste somebody is in? I heard somebody mention a last name, but what other ways does somebody know what caste a person is in besides a last name?
That's a good question, and I think that you guys would be good to answer it. I want to address the first question though about, is it possible to quantify impact? Like how many people would be affected? This is something that manifests in Nepal, in Pakistan, Bhutan, Maldives. It's in a variety of countries. It's across a variety of religions. It's not just Hinduism. So I'm not sure how we would exactly quantify it. Yeah, if you would like to jump in. Yeah, go ahead.
Typically, what happens is the first question will be like, are you vegetarian or non-vegetarian? First question. So if you're a non-veg, then they'll say, like, if you eat beef, then that kind of thing. Secondly, they'll ask, which village are you from? They'll find out which temple you go. Because Indian temples are caste-based. So Indian streets, there's we call it as village, cherry, or so everything is kind of even today. If I go to my village, I can't go to Agraharam, we call the Brahmin locality. I cannot go. I have to see my safety or any other caste. So it's all completely apartheid, completely discriminated. It's like a nation fighting with another nation. You won't believe it. So first thing, they'll ask different questions and they'll find out if you from this street, even this area, they'll find it out. Same thing here. So that's how they do that. It's a probing question. Yeah.
Those are actually illegal employment questions. You can't ask those in an interview.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother presentation. Okay,
But
so
the Asian American community is the largest racial ethnic minority in the city. So last I checked at the last census, it was about 18%.
Okay.
And there is a split, I think, between, Asian Indians, Chinese Americans, Koreans. So there are very few Southeast Asians, but we are one of the larger metropolitans in the state with one of the largest Asian American communities. So I think whatever statement we can make on behalf of the community reflects, I think, an interest that the entire community has in making
Yeah.
sure our
I
team
agree.
members are protected, especially in the face of, a lot of community members after, with the anti-Asian hate work and gun violence with Atlanta shootings, that people talk about, how hate works within our communities, either directed at us, between each other, from us to other communities. So this might be a good exercise to talk about harm, safety, history, identities, and make us work a little bit harder to understand a pretty significant community here
Yeah.
in the city, at the university, and then folks coming in from neighboring communities to work or go to school here.
I think it's really important to recognize, too, that someone who is uninitiated and uninformed and born in the United States without much contact with other cultures might not discriminate on the basis of caste, but would discriminate on the basis of national origin or race. But intra-group discrimination,
Yeah.
where, you are in fact being refused service or diminished in some way, wouldn't be recognized here because it wouldn't be based on national origin. And yet it's just as harmful. I mean, it is, a comparison might be colorism among folks that are the descendants of slavery in America,
Yeah.
right? Where the lighter you are, the straighter your hair, the more beautiful you'll be perceived as. And I do think it's important to capture all of these different ways in which, we diminish one another and make sure that we can hear in a formal way the problems. And I hope that we're going to form at least a little sub-community or group, because I'd like to hear more about what people's experiences have been. I mean, there is a lot of concern and fear around this. And so something must have triggered it,
Yeah.
So I would like to learn about that.
And I think, because we have this transient kind of community here, but we have a large immigrant community, it makes some of those cultural kind of traditions, that intra-group discrimination that happens, it's really happening here. You know what I mean? But it's interesting that you brought up colorism, because in looking into this, the attorneys let me know, the legal department, that we don't have ancestry currently in our non-discrimination ordinance.
Yes.
And, ancestry, you could attribute, like tribal identity, you could attribute a whole host of ancestral identities to that, right? So this could also be an opportunity for us, beyond adding caste, to think more holistically about how intergroup discrimination of different cultures manifests here in the U.S. And how do we protect people against it?
I'll just take a second here. When you said colorism, the whole thing started from there only. When you say varna means color. The varna means color, so you got it right.
Yeah, this is something that.
Varna means color, the four colors,
Colonialism started
British.
horrible.
So yeah, that is
cultural
something that's
tradition.
important to note. Even though it's complex identities, it's based in anti-Blackness. And that is really how people know what caste you belong to.
Yes.
I just want to add one more thing. I don't know how many council members know. There is one lawsuit here in the University of Michigan. There is one faculty member with the caste discrimination with another faculty member. And that it happened in 2010.
Oh.
You can Google it out. It is there now. But there is happened in our own city and we don't know. And people are not coming forward because they are worried about their job. They are worried about their family, what's going to happen to their kids and next generation, because if I disclose something, something may happen.
Right.
It's all
Right.
fear here. But there is a lawsuit here in the city of Ann Arbor right now that it happened in 2010. One faculty member at the University of Michigan did that.
Thanks for letting us know. It might be worth us taking a look at what are big institutions doing. I know that Harvard amended their non-discrimination ordinance to include caste. We can see if Michigan has. So in terms of next steps,
Yeah.
I've suggested language from Margie.
Mhm.
I want to go over it with Lynn. In terms of us writing a resolution with it,
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea. This is a complex issue.
Mhm.
So Lynn and I can start that, and we'll work with, the ANA members. I hope I'm saying that right, ANA members. And then also bring you all in. Does that sound like a good next step?
Well, is it possible to, maybe within the next 2 to 3 weeks, organize some sort of a listening session so that, we can really just sit and talk with folks and find out, what they're afraid of and what has been happening? 'Cause
So specifically, like putting out a call to the community that if you've experienced caste
just,
discrimination?
like, I've held them in libraries, in the downtown library. A gathering where we try to connect with, community groups.
I guess I just wonder about anonymity, if folks are worried about, disclosing, or if they're in situations right now, if they're. Yeah.
But as with the undocumented community in general, we don't post signs and we don't set up notices. We ask community group members to chat among themselves, and normally, or in my experience, there are some safe spaces that the community identifies. So, for instance, there have been a couple, those meeting rooms in a trailer community right off of Michigan Avenue. I mean, locations like that, but to let and ask the community to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, if we're mobile.
Yeah, I think that, I want to step back for a second. This issue can be highly politicized. And I do want to say that despite its origins, it's part of Indian culture and heritage, and it crosses religions. I want to say that. I also agree with Lynn that, a lot of these people could be in really sensitive positions and not want to come out. But I think what would be beneficial for us, and we've talked about this for a while, is just having an open forum at some point as the HRC on, have you experienced discrimination? How do you file a report? Instead of calling out caste, because then that could also help us get people who might talk about colorism or other forms of discrimination that might fit under ancestry. Could it inform a variety of work?
If folks are uncomfortable in any kind of group setting, that's, of course, we'll honor that. I have found that oftentimes in the details, and something triggers a change in the community. And if we're to identify other ways in which we might be helpful, like that is how the idea emerged, just talking with people about what was difficult in their lives and trying to come up with a universal that did not isolate one group from the other solution, right? Which I think our new non-discrimination ordinance and IDs carries now nicely to a closed circle, because now we're just talking about government-issued IDs, right?
Yes, yeah.
So whatever, I don't mean to slow a process or cause anyone discomfort. I just want to be available if people want to talk about what's going on, so that we might see an opportunity and being, so it's okay. In terms of the process that you have outlined, I don't want to slow anything.
And I think we will be focused on the resolution, and then as your guys' work as a committee in terms of how. I'm sorry. I think, with mine and Lynn's role, and I forget my role now that I'm a CM liaison, we are really here to help turn our work kind of into policy, right? In terms of how this may inform your guys' community engagement or outreach work. I think that's a discussion that you guys should all have. And I also think it should be guided by the people most impacted. So, bringing some folks into these conversations when you think about doing a forum, a listening session, who've been affected, is a good idea.
it's relatively easy to put them into the protected class list. It's harder to make it meaningful.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
want it to be meaningful.
Yeah.
There's a comment.
Yes, Sarah.
Hi. Thank you for everyone who spoke today. It was very moving, and for your work on this, Aisha. I had two questions. So the first one, I think, pertains to how do we make it meaningful? And sorry. So I was curious about the definition that you came up with, and one thing that I noticed is that it doesn't, like, it sounds from this conversation that this is like specific to South Asia and so forth, but it's not mentioned here. Was that intentional? Can you kind of talk through the implications of that? Are we sure that this definition is going to, like, are we sure this definition is going to target what we think it's going to target?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. So let me read the definition out loud that legal helped to come up with, and it has been shared with members of the group. Caste, so this would be added to the NDO on its own. Caste is a system of rigid social stratification characterized by hereditary status, race, or ancestry that restricts social status and creates social barriers, including restricting individuals' occupations, social interactions, and other privileges. I'm not saying that's the most perfect definition. I think that, like, if we all want to have a conversation about how it can be improved, especially, you know, with groups like this informing the process, I think that's a good idea. I think we wanted to intentionally leave it open because, like, yes, it may manifest in South Asian countries, but it may manifest in other countries, right? And we also don't want to put specifically, I remember thinking about this, if we put South Asian specifically, I don't want to limit someone else or someone interpreting that as, do I have to be an immigrant from there? I have, you know, I'm second generation here. It's affecting me. That was my thinking of it. And let me also read Seattle's. Can I read Seattle's and what they recently did? Caste is a system of rigid social stratification characterized by hereditary status, endogamy, and social barriers sanctioned by custom, law, or religion. Yeah, we have room to think about both. And yeah, there was a conversation about not including religion in ours, but.
Yeah, I think just making sure that no one can say, oh, I wasn't discriminating about caste because I don't think about caste in this way according to this definition or something. So do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I know. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you pointed out something important, and I think that what we have here could be improved. Okay. I want to talk about it with the attorneys and with Lynn as well.
And I do think, as the gentleman pointed out, with colorism and anti-blackness at its origin, I think it should be added in.
Under race? Are you saying that it should be added in under race?
To the definition.
To the to the definition of race?
Of color.
Not race.
Got it. Okay.
Not race.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about it. I think
the
next up
other,
is-
oh, sorry,
Yeah.
can I?
Go ahead.
The other piece that I'm thinking about is also, you know, as you highlighted, Lynn, talking, you know, having these difficult conversations about intra-group discrimination. And in my experience, like in high school, we learned a lot about the caste system in my history class, and I think that's because Americans like to think about other cultures discriminating and coming up with discriminatory systems so that we don't feel as bad about all of the injustices that we've perpetuated throughout the years, right?
Yeah.
And so when we have these difficult conversations about intra-group discrimination in mixed company, as they say, how do we have those conversations in a way that doesn't demonize members of our community or, you know, make it seem that Asians are uniquely discriminatory or something like that. So just being really mindful as we pursue this very worthy, I think, addition to our NDO. How do we have those conversations in mixed company in a way that is, you know, fulfilling our goals of equity? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, this was really crystallized by colonialism. And India had the second largest population for the slave trade after blacks. So they were a part of a lot of the casteism that has been seen in other South Asian countries were because there were so many Indians who were shipped as slaves to work like colonial, British sugarcane plantations and whatnot. But no, those are important things, so thank you. So I think next, let's do like a subcommittee and start talking more offline about how we can really make sure this is thorough.
Yeah, excellent.
Not trying to block you guys off from this conversation, I'm sorry.
Do you think it'd be valuable to have people express their interest in forming a work group of some sort
Sure,
to
yeah,
talk about
yeah.
it? Are there people who would especially like to be on this group?
Oh, definitely, me, definitely.
I would
Sarah?
also be interested in
Brandon?
supporting.
Now, is this a Human Rights Commission committee meeting or city council subcommittee? Just,
No, this is.
Yeah, we're still members,
Right.
yeah.
But
well, I didn't know if
It can't be
non,
more than 4 people. So we've got 4 people now. If it's a Human Rights Commission meeting,
Yeah, 'cause
group, then it has to be less than 5.
Because the resolution has to come from the Human Rights Commission.
right, no, I knew, I just meant
It doesn't have
this
to come,
original.
no.
It can, but
Okay.
it's not required.
It can, but we knew that it would be stronger if we shared it with all of you tonight and got your input, and we want to
And
continue
it might be
getting your
useful to have, we've got your addresses, right? Your email addresses?
Yes,
On
yes,
that
yes.
list? Yes.
Yeah, I've been in touch with them.
But now that's what I was asking, and we spoke of concern about.
Because of Open Meetings Act and limiting. because of
No,
quorum?
in terms of having community members in at this phase.
Yeah.
That, earlier I was asking the same sort of question. Can we have a group with folks that are affected? And
Yeah, I mean, maybe I confused, and I thought you were talking about the listening session.
Oh, okay,
I
good. No,
confused the two.
this is what I mean when I say listening session, because, we'll do most of the listening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Let's talk about it.
Okay,
Great.
good.
Thanks, all of you. Thank you again for coming.
Well, thank you.
And we'll be in touch.
Yes, we will. Okay, let us go to the other part of our agenda then.
Leslie?
Yes?
Would it be possible to adjust the agenda for me to go next because my daughter's having a meltdown at home, apparently?
Okay. What-
Can I motion for that?
Yes. Is that-
I also just wanted to do like a quick clarification of who's working on the CAST, I guess, movement and process, just to get like names. I wasn't sure like. who
Brandon,
was
Keita, and Sarah, and is there another person?
Council members.
And the 2 council members. Okay, so we do have room for one other person if there is somebody who wants to do it. Or maybe I'll do it if no one else is.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And Lynn. Okay. Yes, I suppose we
I
could.
move that we move the agenda to have. Sarah
Thank
go
you.
next.
Sarah, go next.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate everyone's
yeah.
flexibility. So I just wanted to give a quick update about our efforts to identify LGBTQ affirming local legislation that we could consider in Ann Arbor. It has been tricky, so I was able to talk to the policy director, Emmy Zanotti at Equality Michigan, who everyone kind of pointed to as like the organization working on LGBTQ rights in Michigan. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, but it seems like all of the players in this field are very focused on state level legislation, and all of their kind of expertise around advocacy and what are the priorities and all this is really focused on state level. So they kind of had some ideas, which I shared via email, but can recap quickly today. But it kind of wasn't super clear. So I think we are going to have to investigate and pave our own way a little bit. in consultation with community if we want to move forward and do something actionable around this. And I heard back from her today that, yeah, like there isn't really a point person who does local ordinance work. So one thing she mentioned that could potentially be low-hanging fruit is that we were dinged in the equality index last time it was run because the city does not offer trans-affirming healthcare to city employees. So I'm not sure who would we follow up with about that, but that could be one tangible way for trans folks who are city employees, at least, to have better access to gender-affirming care. Some other ideas that came up, there was a recent incident with a high school student who sounded like denied access to the bathroom that corresponded to their gender. And so thinking about looking at some affirming bathroom legislation, again, I was having trouble identifying local ordinance examples, but some ideas that I heard from Brandon and I talked to a couple of people, and I talked to a couple additional people, was like a ordinance that says any single stall bathroom has to be gender neutral or gender inclusive, which seemed, again, like kind of a relatively low-hanging proposition. Another legislation idea that I heard was if you have a new build and any new build like has to have a single stall bathroom that is gender inclusive. So again, those were sort of the easier propositions that don't force anybody to retrofit their existing bathrooms into single stall or gender inclusive bathrooms, but those could be options to think about looking at. There was also some interest when I emailed the commission about sanctuary laws. So those are laws that have been proposed at the state level in certain states that say that if you come here for reproductive health care or gender affirming health care, even if those types of health care are illegal in your state of origin, we will not assist with any prosecution of you for coming here to engage in those types of health care, and they're explicitly protected. So I'm not sure if anybody can talk to the city attorney to look into, like, is that even legally something that we could consider passing at the local level? Like, does it even make sense? I'm not sure kind of how that works. I know that some like counties and local cities have declared themselves sanctuary cities in terms of immigration. So possibly this could be something that we could look into. I'm not sure how much legal protection it factually affords folks who come here for those types of care, but maybe it at least sends some kind of symbolic message. There were some other ideas like around could we compel employers of a certain size to offer trans-inclusive health care to their employees? Something to think about, certainly. Are there ways to make it so insurance companies can't put up barriers like prior authorization for gender-affirming health care or even HIV treatment? The other pieces were potentially talking to the library board and collaborating around kind of like book bans and maybe affirmative legislation that protects against those kinds of bans. Again, I'm not sure. I don't know that Ann Arbor is enacting any bans, so I don't know how much it factually helps. It would be more of a symbolic thing. And then the other issues that came up were things that weren't LGBTQ specific, but may disproportionately affect LGBTQ people, such as looking again at sex work decriminalization, which I know came up in the past as something for City Council to consider, which was not voted on, but that was another, in the listening sessions that we did with folks, that was another thing that came up to consider. So I'll pause there and take your questions or thoughts.
Regarding the library board, there would be no need for any sort of legislation in regards to book banning or anything in terms of associated progressive programming in that vein. There are also, in terms of the discussion of book banning in general, there are proactive systems in care in place in case that were to sort of reach the state or national media discussion, but currently there is no sort of discussion at a local level that we're aware of, but should there are preventative measures in place to sort of, help, again, quash any of that discussion. I'm more than happy to follow up offline or connect with the executive director or even the rest of the board, but know that, at least for now,
Okay.
that should be a non-issue.
All right, that sounds like low priority for us then.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But the library does host a really amazing program, and has for a couple of years now, in helping folks with names, changing names legally, and kind of navigating the process on updating your IDs. And that's with an LGBTQ law clinic, I think, at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, there's regularly trans and trans affirmative programming as well in conjunction with that.
They're called the Outlaws.
Yes.
You can get health benefit information. So every year I have to go through and I have to review healthcare plans, and most healthcare plans, I do it for the federal government, but most healthcare plans now have gender affirming surgery as part of their plans. So I'm not sure what the city has or what they offer now currently, but any HR department, you could go to any HR department at any business and talk to whoever handles their benefits to have them go in and look at whether gender affirming surgery or care is included in the benefits package. And then if it's not, there are hundreds of insurance packages out there that offer those services. I mean, I could probably rattle off 12 right now that offer that, because we offer them in the federal government to our employees at the VA. So they are out there and they're available. Now, whether or not companies could afford those health benefit premiums is a different story. So, and I think sometimes that's what it boils down to.
I have seen studies that have looked at this, and because there are relatively few transgender people, the typically premiums would raise by less than $1 per person in order to cover these types of care. So it really is cost effective, yeah.
Just to amplify what Aiden was saying about book banning, I just happened to speak to a school board member just today who assured me that there was no efforts that she was aware of to have the schools control or ban any books. So
That's reassuring, yes. I already crossed it off the list here, so.
And I think one thing I want to add, kind of going back to the previous points about community engagement and everything, I think that would be something that's good right now to see if we can get just people that are willing to share their experience that are local members to kind of see like what is their experience. Because it seems like right now there's kind of like a top-down approach to what's been happening in terms of policies, systems, and everything. So I think, I mean, I'm still very new in everything, but if there's a way or mechanisms or organizations that primarily work with the LGBTQ plus population, if we can see if we can just like chat with them and then kind of get their experiences to, again, kind of going into like their own domain. They can set it up and then just invite us in so that they, feel safe in those environments. But I think that can also see like things that impact just like people in general, whether it is within or outside of the identity as well. So I think that could also be a potential next step to kind of say that we tried to do our research and everything, and now we're hoping to see from like on the ground level, on the everyday lived experience too. So I guess if that's something that we can work on, then I'm happy to follow up with you with that too.
I wonder if we can kind of come at it from both angles. So
Yeah.
one thing I think can be effective is, going into meetings with community, both kind of eliciting open-ended, what are your ideas, your priorities, but also saying like, okay, and we talked to the attorney and here are things that are like seem really actionable. How would you prioritize this list of like actually, legally possible options? And so you're both generating new ideas, but also like, because sometimes it's hard to even know what the universe of options is. So kind of doing some of that legwork to bring prepared to the meeting also. I think coming at it from both angles could be really helpful. So I don't know if maybe at this point we've had enough meetings with folks outside. Maybe it's time for me or someone else to meet with the city attorney and talk to them about, like, from a local ordinance perspective, what is actually possible. Would she be the appropriate person to talk to, or? Okay. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to when I was on the Neutral Zones Board and how, I think it was in the early 2000s, there was an actual survey in the county of LGBTQ experience with youth.
Okay.
And Neutral Zone teens actually took that report and then put it into a performance to report it back to community members.
That's cool.
The group was called Gay-Rillas. I loved it.
Love it.
So if there's any room or time, maybe we can reach back to Neutral Zone and see if we can get a handle on that report. And I know there are youth who'd be really relieved to hear that the commission is working on this, if only because I hear from a number of parents of teenagers here who are either transitioning, considering transitioning, or in the community in other ways, and who are watching the political landscape nationally. I mean, they track the veto in Kentucky, right? I mean, the legislature, even though the governor had tried to protect trans rights there. So, or I should call it access to essential medical care, right? But yeah, that's just a suggestion before we approach the attorney, because I know the youth are, I mean, young teens are really, really anxious about this right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we've worked with the Neutral Zone before, and they were fabulous.
Yeah.
That would be a very good place to go.
Yeah.
'Cause I
Lynn,
don't
would you be
think we're
able to
quite
reach
ready
out,
for-
or would you be able to reach out to them, or at least make an introduction if you'd like me to reach out?
Yeah, the director and I we were in the MSW program together before we had our baby, so yeah, we're never letting each other go. So I will do that. I can do that.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
So it sounds like next steps, Lynn is going to reach out to Neutral Zone. Can someone put me in touch with the city attorney, or?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thank
So
you.
do you want to email me, and then so that I have
Sure.
something, and then I'll forward it on, and.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, and then, yeah, not to put you on the spot, Brandon, but do you want to start thinking about maybe like partners like Spectrum Center, or I don't know, like just folks that we could, Neutral Zone, Ozone House, whatever, that we could tap, and maybe to start thinking about organizing a listening session to kind of get community priorities and get clarity around that?
Yeah, I can try to like make a spreadsheet or something of
Great.
university and non-university places and
Awesome.
like the connections that I have. So
Okay.
yeah, and also thank you for spearheading
Yeah.
this. I know it's been a lot of work on the front end.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing this to light.
Of course. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Let's start at the beginning of what we were going to do at the first part of this meeting. City Council, anything going on that we ought to know about? That the special of interested people.
No, I mean, we only laugh because there's always a lot
There's
of
always a lot.
things.
I just have to open up that part of my brain.
We had actually a relatively light agenda at the last city council meeting. I was looking through it. Mostly, it was approving more housing and rezoning. So if housing is a human right, then we can
Housing, yeah.
report that. There's a development that we approved and had a public hearing about off of North Maple Road. So not too far from where Avalon Housing already has a project that was approved back in 2017, and the third phase was just completed last fall. So this new project is private developer. It looks like it'll be about 70 units with affordable housing, all electric. So sustainable with affordable housing at 60% AMI, which is still a lot because average median income in the county is for a four-person household is $100K. But it is what it is. It is what we have, and we are trying to use all the options that we can to encourage more housing to be developed in the city. I think that was really the bulk of the meeting. It was just approving
Yeah.
that project.
Can you just remind me of which project this is so I know what to
Sure,
to
it's
support?
North Maple.
North Maple, okay.
Yep, North Maple Apartments.
Gotcha.
It's 1, 2, 3,
Okay, great.
4 parcels. So close to where Skyline is, close to the roundabout, right on the edge of the townships.
I think there's a few other things that didn't happen at the last, a resolution that I worked on with Lynn and with Cynthia Harrison about basically holding DT accountable to ratepayers and not to, the people who they have in their pockets, their shareholders. Because these outages, and as, as climate change gets worse, it's really disproportionately affecting the most marginalized, people who are poor. And then it's really having a huge impact on our social service organizations and the resources they have, and then in turn, the resources that everyone else gets as well, right? So we wrote a resolution, basically it's called it's directing the city administrator to engage with the Michigan legislature and Michigan Public Service Commission to demand energy equity and resilience, and we were really intentional about the energy equity part. There's a few other things that might be of interest. Do you want to talk about the Ann Arbor Housing Commission funding for eviction?
Oh, right. That was a close one. So we had about 100 families living in hotels for temporary shelter with an expected eviction on April 2nd because of county funding, which the city is the only other partner in funding coordinated social services. So it's the city and the county. The contract would have ended with our social service partners on April 1st. So we were getting calls from social workers, folks in the community who were saying we cannot have over 100 children on the streets. So council did some really quick work with the Ann Arbor Housing Commission and rededicated funding that went to this allotment to emergency eviction relief and assistance. And the county, it took a little bit, but it took a little while, but they also rededicated money for this. I think they actually took it out of their general reserves. I think it's over $1 million that was taken out of general reserves to try to find rapid rehousing or extending hotel vouchers for families. I think ultimately it was a quick fix for and maybe another 6 months. The worry that city council and county commissioners have is we can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this and hoping for good weather, hoping we don't have more outages with more folks who are struggling to find emergency housing. And then we ourselves, the city, we had to dedicate another $500,000 to respond to the ice storms, right? So somehow between the city and the county, we need to be creative about our budget as we go into budget season on these emergencies and thinking about housing insecurity like how we did during the pandemic, where we had federal monies to stave off eviction. So we had the eviction moratoriums. We also had, federal funding for folks to stay housed. The eviction courts are packed with cases right now. So, the request that we've been hearing from community is assistance with legal services. Over 90% of tenants are not represented in eviction courts, but landlords sure are. And that's inequity. That's a clear inequity that we see in this whole process. And other cities have, like Detroit, have passed right to counsel, but to pass right to counsel for tenants also means figuring out how to budget for that. In Detroit, that was millions from, I think, the Rocket family or Rocket Fund, the mortgage people dedicated money to that. So we're just trying to figure out, how we can be creative, but also how we can understand what is happening in a more timely manner. So HAWK, which is the intake call line for folks who are in crisis, there's a delay in the past you would get a call back within 24 hours. Right now, it's you won't have a response or be evaluated for 5 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
this kind of came off of a crisis last June, last year, when the Salvation Army, which was contracted by the county to do the HAWK intake work, they stopped doing it. We had over 2,000 unanswered calls between June and August. And that was such poor timing because that was also when federal relief for eviction avoidance also ended. So we knew there was a cliff that was happening. And then between last June and throughout the fall, it's been trying to just catch up and try to figure out how to, the county has decided to do intake itself and staff it up with temporary staff, and then finally hired folks. So instead of contracting out to agencies, meanwhile, agencies who are on the ground are trying to do assessments as they come in. So it's just been kind of like a constant scramble to figure out funding, figure out what is actually putting folks in crisis. A lot of it is not being able to meet payment on their rent rent increases have been outrageous in the county. And then landlords are also trying to figure out how to change lease terms to avoid some of our own ordinance changes too. And there are only so many landlords in town with so much housing. I think McKinley once told me that they credit themselves for housing 60% of our workforce, right? So, we are trying to, one thing that I've asked county commissioners, Mr. Dohoney and the county administrators, try to see if we can come together for like a real work session on funding, also like a better real-time evaluation on what's going on with folks, having the schools involved. So the McKinney-Vento Act is a federal act that requires schools to provide transportation, no matter, if a child attends Ann Arbor Public Schools, but they live in the townships, or they're homeless and are coming in from a hotel in Belleville, which is happening. Children are in Belleville and then trying to find transportation into Ann Arbor. We need to talk to those social workers. So right now, I feel like we're not really coordinating efforts as well as we could be or should be. And we need to have better answers before it gets cold again this fall. And if that includes advocating for more funding at the state level or, at the federal level, it really, really has to happen, because if we look at homelessness and how it's been addressed in other cities, Texas, of all places, has some really good measures on zero veteran homelessness, right? So, of course, that has federal funding around that, but somehow we need to get past this inertia of saying, well, you need to do more. No, you need to do more. It's your funding. Or maybe we need to ask the townships for money. The townships do not contribute to social service funding in the county. And we're really looking at a lot of this effort being on Eastern Washtenaw, right? So if the townships have gotten more revenue from building developments while Ann Arbor is just trying to catch up, I would hope that they would consider this as being kind of a countywide effort to join in, but townships have actually said no to this. They've actually said, no, we are not mandated to contribute to this. It's not in our charter, So, if anyone knows folks in the townships and cares for human services, it might be a good time to talk to your township supervisor or your township trustees and say, I would like you to contribute to food security, housing security, legal services, something. Because right now it's only Ann Arbor and the county, and for Ann Arbor, for our funding, it can only stay within the city.
Thank you, Lynn.
So,
Yeah. So a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Thank you for doing it.
I know, because there's so much going on. It just
so
slips
much,
through our
yes.
minds. There was something else at the last meeting, I'll be really brief, about a call from a council member. We're participating in an opioid settlement with CVS. Well, basically, we're participating in this lawsuit, right, with CVS and whatever, and Walgreens. There's more specific text in Legistar, but essentially, Councilmember Cynthia Harrison called the city to really think about the money when we get from that settlement, putting it towards harm reduction and, substance abuse treatment and mental health services.
So there's possibilities for For helping, lots of,
So a good update, I have a positive update. So during the ARPA funding work last year, I had asked for universal basic income. And I think that was like 1.6 million that we had dedicated to that. It went through an RFP process, and we are partnering with the Poverty Solutions Center at U of M. That announcement will be out, I think, early May, the first council meeting in May. And they'll be the ones who'll be researching and putting a process behind giving $500 a month to 100 families over the course of 2 years. And we've seen studies across the country show that just giving this money that's unrestricted to folks who are at a certain AMI has really helped folks just stay housed, pay medical bills, whatever they need, childcare.
Yeah, I've read those studies too. It's really effective.
is somebody going to monitor what happens with
Yeah,
that?
so that's
that
the
will
U of
help.
M Poverty Solutions Center will be
Good.
the one behind that. So that's next May.
That is good news.
Yes, good news. Good news. We've got 15 minutes and an awful lot to do. What I'd like to do first, though, is to approve the minutes, get that out of the way. Does anybody have any, I guess we need a motion to handle the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I second.
Okay, discussion.
One discussion.
Sorry.
So, it's on page 3, under contract compliance. Just a minor.
I can't hear you.
On page 3 of the minutes, under contract compliance, just a very minor correction. Next to the last sentence, it reads, "and raised some issued," should be issues, an S rather than a D.
Yeah. Okay, is that it?
Oh, I actually have one too.
Okay.
I would like, so our non-discrimination ordinance is most excellent because it does not isolate a particular type of government-issued ID. So what we talked about last time was a government-issued ID card / non-discrimination ordinance. Like we undermine the work of the ordinance by isolating the Washtenaw ID. It should become just another just another government-issued ID. So under old business?
Where are you talking?
Oh, okay. Page
Page 3?
Page 3, under old business.
I see.
So for future discussions in this one, let's just do government-issued ID cards.
Okay. And that's what it says, is that right? I mean, do you want to change in this minute?
So that it says government-issued ID,
It
not
does.
Washtenaw ID.
Oh, remove.
Oh, I see, you mean up here, okay.
okay.
I see. I see, okay,
Yep, thank you.
okay. On page 1, Mahoney's name is spelled wrong. On this, here,
D-O.
yes. And I think we've got them all that I had. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed with changes. Facial recognition, Aiden and Lynn, quickly.
I'll
How
bounce
is
that
go?
over to you, Lynn.
Okay, yeah. This is a long-standing issue that's been kind of on hold. We have draft language that's from last summer, actually, from the attorney's office, from when Arian Slade was still here, the prosecuting attorney. And I think we just quibbled over whether it should be a resolution or ordinance. And then with Arian running for office, it wasn't just really the top priority. But we can revive this work and actually share the draft language with the rest of the commission, especially since we have so many new commissioners. And now that we have a new city prosecutor, and maybe some new eyes will give a bit of life to it too. So, I mean, I think the unfortunate thing is no progress because it was difficult to make it a priority before. But I think hopefully there's new enthusiasm behind it.
There will definitely be, in my perspective, pretty substantive edits and uplifts to the document as well. So just being transparent about the associated lift that would come along with it for folks who want to get involved.
Do you want to pass that by us at any point?
Sure. I don't think there's anything.
Is there anything to pass?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've had draft language
Yeah.
since last summer. Yeah. It's not what I wanted. I'll be honest. I wanted a lot. I wanted it to be like very strong and very affirmative, backed by what the ACLU had recommended. I think what community members had asked, but what we got was a very conservative response, a very conservative and limited legal response versus what we wanted was something that can live beyond whoever's at the table, whoever's on council or on these commissions. And then as technology changes and develops, it would be responsive and strong enough to protect folks from it. So yeah. We'll have to make it better.
Okay, good. Any way we can help, let us know. Complaint process. Judah.
Okay, I'll just speak briefly about this in the interest of time, and this is more of an internal matter, so if anyone has questions, you've got the materials. Thank you, Linda, for drafting that, and Lindsay for editing it. I'm just going to be the point person going forward in the process along with Denise. But look it over. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, let me know. And it's a draft, but it's, the idea is complaints will come to Denise, she'll alert me, then I'll form them out to a lead and to another person to handle them. That's the gist of it, which we talked about last time. So that's all I got.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that the first part is really for the management assistant, who is Denise. Then if you go to page 3, I should have put page numbers on it. It's for the commissioners who are assigned either inquiries or complaints to handle. So yes, this is something that's been a work in progress. We're changing a little bit about the way assignments are made so that somebody has more control over it, since it's been a little hit or miss. Obviously, with the agreement of the people who are called to ask whether they can handle it. But please read it over, and especially if you do agree to take on an inquiry or a complaint, really follow it. And as you're trying to follow it, if you come up with ways that this can be clarified or improved or changed, keep a note of it, let us know. It's definitely a work in progress.
I guess just a word that this all came about after our strategic planning session 2 years ago now, that everybody wanted to be involved. We had a group that was dedicated to this, and now we're trying to open it up to everybody. It is something that forced us to look at our process, the people who are doing it. But, and Judah will try to pair people together so that you have somebody with you with some experience if you've never had it before. But this is, it's been a very helpful process because we have to look at what we're doing, but we have a responsibility to be professional and follow some rules. Okay. Trespass update, Linda?
Yep, I'll make it brief. We've had lots of back and forth, fortunately now directly between us and the communication department in the city. So we've got a final version. It's going finally back to the Ann Arbor Police Department. They'll look it over one more time, and then it goes to the printer. So we've done it. Yay.
So you'll see it when it's done. But I think it's going to be a lot better. Better policy. U of M, know your rights. It doesn't, they've kind of dropped the ball. I think we're in finals. They're probably not going to do it in April. They may do it in the summer term. We'll see. I've made a number of reaching out attempts, and it hasn't worked, but we will do it. We have the beginnings and maybe a good part of a presentation and even some nice graphics, thanks to Brandon. And I will, as soon as it gets somewhat presentable, I'm going to pass it by you so that we'll know we have some. I want input, and I'd like to make sure that we have something so that we're ready to do it next time. We don't have to start, from scratch. And we can take the show on the road anywhere once we have it, so that's a good thing. Identifying, we did that, and the HRC mailing list. We sent out, actually, we started out with about 260 names on the mailing list that was out of date by about 4 years, and about 35 names fell off. Is that about right? And I sent you all a copy of what we sent out. We'll see what happens. We would like people to know that by simply dropping a quick note to HRC at a2gov.org, give us your name and your email address if you want to be on this list. This is going to be a very interesting list. The Renters Commission is interested and is using it now, and so will ICPOC. And it's a list of people who are interested in civil rights and human rights, and it's a different list than what maybe goes out normally. So it's something that we can use in a lot of different ways. Anyway, I'm glad it's starting to work, and we'll let you know what happens to it. Finally, the Renters Association, Renters Commission. I've made contact with the Renters Commission with Kristen Vanderloo, who is I guess she's the administrative assistant for that group. And we are going to do a presentation in June for them, and they will do something for us. We have somewhat interlocking interests. We do discrimination in housing on all the protected classes. That makes us important for housing. We do source of income, which makes us very important because that's where people have protection against discrimination against vouchers, for example, in Section 8. And now we also have fair chance access to housing. So there are 3 ways in which we're involved in housing as we have not been involved for many years. We don't know as much about it. They know a lot about it. We take complaints and they don't. So there are lots of ways that we can help each other out. And are giving a presentation to them. They're telling us what they do and what they know, and referring people who need us will be very helpful, I think, for everybody on this. So the date is June 15th at 7:30, and it'd be nice if some of you folks came. It's Zoom, so it's not a big commitment, but it'd be nice if we showed up, supported us, and, all got the same information at one time. And then we'll see what they can do for us.
You'll send us the link?
I will send you the link, yes, when I get it. Washtenaw County NDO. This has to do, Keita, with your checking in with the county, giving them a flyer.
Okay.
That's the last thing, and
Okay, so let me back up. I realized that I have not asked the community groups that I've always asked for their input before, presenting anything that's written or structuring anything, and I need to do that.
Okay.
I think it's really important that, we continue that collaboration. And I wasn't able to do it in this intervening period because, and I also have good news, I don't know if you read or heard that the Michigan legislature is going to be introducing, both state and the House, bills to permit folks who are undocumented to apply for a driver's license. And there'll be, hopefully, if it passes, no longer a requirement to prove that you're in this country, after a whole host of administrative hurdles. So that's really exciting. It looks actually feasible. A few, of course, are arguing against it, but I think really we have a really good shot at it. And most folks are working on that ID issue right now. So hopefully by our next meeting, I'll have some feedback.
Right. I just want to make sure that if there are people who are having problems with ID, they know to call us.
Well, but, okay, so first issue is, it's the statute in terms of putting it in the,
Has to be in
the
Ann
county
Arbor.
clerk's office, that's for the whole county. So we would get calls from folks that live in the county, because that's where.
It doesn't matter where they live, it matters where they
I know, but a lot of folks going to the clerk's office on Main Street are taking their ID back to Ipsy or wherever
They
they
should know
live,
that
right?
if it happens in Ann
Oh,
Arbor.
I know, but we want to be sure that we're not confusing folks.
Yeah.
That we put out a pamphlet that's clear and lets them know. And then if it's not an act of discrimination in Ann Arbor, I feel like I need to come up with something comparable for folks who are non-Ann Arbor, right, victims. Because obviously we know this is going on, everywhere. So I just want to hesitate and get input on how people think this should best be handled, But I am happy about the driver's license.
Yeah, I would encourage folks to contact Senator Stephanie Chang. She's been working on this for 7 years, and it wasn't until we finally have a majority in the legislature that this can actually see light of day and have some life behind it. So I think there was a press conference like 5 hours ago. It was her and a number of legislators and families who say like they put themselves at risk every day to drive their kids to school because they don't have a license, even though they work here and they are legally here.
You know what's so phenomenal about this process, too, is that a lot of undocumented folks were part of the organizing process in terms of reaching out. There's so many families with mixed status, and organizing folks to vote, to call. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, we are done.
That's it for me.
Thank you
Motion to
very
adjourn?
much. Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Yay.
See you next month. We will be down the basement. Okay. Oh, and be able to look at one another as we speak. Down the basement.